The fragrance of selfless love that has drawn the world into one family. The truth of an eternal message that has been revealed through every act and word. The fulfillment in service that has been taught by relentless sacrifice. The Lord's own life is indeed His message.
Sai Ram, and welcome to the 5th episode in our serial presentation entitled The Message of the Lord. That is being offered as a prelude to the forthcoming celebrations of the 85th anniversary of the avatar of the Kali age, who is none other than our beloved Swami. By way of setting stage for what is to follow, let me remind you that we are currently discussing the basics of spirituality. In the previous 2 episodes, we recalled the following.
True happiness is union with God. What passes for as pleasure, which we constantly seek, is transient and a poor substitute for bliss, which is really what we want and are entitled to. And we can be united with God only if we make it a habit to think of Him constantly. Today, let us start with the question, why did God create the universe? Fortunately for us, Swami himself has given the answer. The message is loud and clear. God created the universe as a stage and put us humans in it so that love manifests. Here we must understand that while God in the abstract is indeed pure love, for love to find expression, it needs a medium or an agency if you prefer. Living beings can act as instruments, and indeed we do see lots of expression of love in the lower species. However, it is humans who are the best instruments for the expression of divine love, which is why God created humans. In other words, humans are really supposed to love each other and not hate each other, fight with each other, and so on. To put it differently, life is a divine drama with pure love as its theme. And although we do not know it, all of us are really actors in this drama. Naturally, the language that all actors are expected to speak in this divine drama is that of pure love. So you see, human birth has a very special purpose, which is why Swami often says, thus, the constant reminder from Swami is, human birth is special and privileged and is not to be wasted the way most of us tend to. Unfortunately, however, most people are not conscious of what God really expects of them. With the result, the divine drama does not play out the way it is supposed to. Basically, humans mess it up by replacing pure love with anger, hate, greed, conflict, war, and what have you. So, what has gone wrong? Did by any chance God write an imperfect script for His divine drama? Not really. God, being the supreme playwright and the ultimate director and producer, cannot be expected to make such elementary mistakes. On the contrary, He did something most unusual. First, He created the stage called the universe. And then He put the actors in it, that is to say, us humans. Now, the actors in a drama are normally given a script and asked to speak their lines according to it. However, God did it differently. He just said to humans, here is the stage, and you let the play evolve. your basic guideline is that whatever you do must always be based on pure love. Let us see how you handle this challenge. So that was what God did, but things did not quite go the way they were supposed to.
What is it that equals the sun in its brightness? It is Rudam, the absolute changeless truth.
In the beginning, humans seemed to remember the instructions, and most people did base their actions on Satya and Dharma. However, slowly but surely, humans began to forget the purpose for which God put them on earth. Indeed, even great sages felt tempted by the attractions of the world. There were also other things that made people forget the language of love. For example, the Mahabharata tells us that the Kauravas became very greedy and treated the Pandavas, grabbing their kingdom via a rigged game of dice. Since then, humans have got on to a huge slippery slope, so much so that these days things are rather bad most of the time. It is because humans quickly forget the instructions of God and get into all sorts of troubles that God incarnates in our midst from time to time in order to help us out. But we shall come to that a little later. Meanwhile, let us deal with the following question. Why do humans mess up God's play? How come they forget what God, the loving Father, has told them? The answer is that it is all due to the human mind. To understand why the mind deflects us from even obeying God's command, we must first try to understand something about its origin and nature. Let us start with animals and consider a rat, for example. The rat has a body, which includes, of course, the sense organs like the eyes, nose, ear, etc., and a brain. The rat has something more, which is life, and life comes straight from God or the Atma. Thus, schematically, a rat may be described as an entity with a gross body and a component of the Atma, which is the source of everything, including the entire universe. What about humans who have evolved from the lower species? In their case, there are similarities, but also important differences. Like the lower species, humans too have various sense organs and, of course, a brain, which, by the way, is quite remarkable. But it does not end there. Since humans were specially created by God to enact out His divine drama, they have something extra, which is the mind. In a sense, the mind is a frontier that is the meeting place of, shall I say, the extension of the Atma on the one hand and the brain on the other. Having descended in a sense from the Atma, the mind is extraordinarily powerful. In fact, Krishna himself says so. It is because of this amazing power that humans are able to do so many amazing things. At the same time, having evolved from the lower species, the mind carries the imprint of a lot of animal behavior, such as anger, cruelty, and so on. In short, when humans try to play out God's instructions in the divine drama, what actually happens is decided by how the mind of every single human responds to two different forces. One force pulls the mind towards the world and all it has, while the other force tries to pull the mind towards God. The result in each case is determined by how much influence the heart exerts to counter the pull from the side of the external world. It is important to understand this point clearly, For this alone explains why some people are good and others are not so good. In the case of a person who is good, the influence of the heart is strong. It illumines the mind strongly. The result is that the good in the person is able to defeat the forces of evil within, and the individual emerges as a virtuous and spiritual person. If, on the other hand, the mind of the person gets polluted by the external attraction, then the negative forces lurking in the mind manage to shut out the light of wisdom and knowledge emanating from the heart. Eventually, the person becomes a cross between an animal and the devil. Some of you might have witnessed the Navaratri festival in Prashanti Nilayam, which usually occurs in the September-October period. The festival lasts 9 days and is in celebration of the Universal Mother who is worshipped during that period. Legend has it that Mother did penance for 9 days and after that purification was able to annihilate a demon called Mahishasura, who was half animal and half human. The message is that it is only through strict control of the senses and the mind that one can remove inner contamination, meaning animal and demonic tendencies, thus enabling the heart to illumine the mind. The problem these days is that the forces of negativity operating in the external world have become enormously strong and powerful. There are so many things to distract our mind. And the media, which is heavily funded by the forces of negativity, spares no effort in keeping us a slave to a lot of unwanted habits. As a result, our problems also have increased enormously. With such powerful negative forces around us, is it any wonder we often feel helpless? Nevertheless, the situation is not as hopeless as it might seem. For is not our beloved Swami here with us? In the Gita, Lord Krishna assures humans that whenever humanity is in distress, he would come back. And he has kept his promise. Not merely has a Lord come back as our dear Swami, but he also constantly reminds us, why fear when I am here? And if that is not enough, he also tells us again and again, I am in you, with you, above you, below you, around you. There are two important points to be noted in the above statement of Baba. Firstly, he is there right within us. That is to say, he dwells in the heart of everyone without exception. What it means is that the first place we must look for Swami is right in our heart. The second point about the statement of Swami mentioned earlier is that he is omnipresent. That is to say, he is everywhere, in everything, and all the time. That is something we should never forget. To stress the point that the heart of humans is the permanent residence of God, Swami sometimes recalls the story of Draupadi in distress. Just to remind you, after the Pandavas were defeated and lost everything in a fraudulent dice game against the evil Kauravas, Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas, was dragged to the court to be publicly humiliated by disrobing.
Draupadiకి పరాభవం జరుగుతున్న సమయంలో
when Draupadi was humiliated,
అనేక విధములుగా ప్రార్థించింది కృష్ణుణ్ణి.
she prayed Krishna in several ways.
ఆపద్బాంధవ, అనాథ రక్షక, బృందావన విహారి,
the one who goes around
గోకుల సంచారి, ఏమేమో నామములంతా చెప్పింది.
She called God in several names. The one who belongs to Vrindavana, the one who stays in Gokula.
కృష్ణుడు రాలేదు, ఆమె యొక్క ఆపత్తును సంరక్షించలేదు.
Krishna did not respond. He didn't come to her rescue.
కడపటికి అలసిపోయింది, కూలిపోతూ
She was just falling on the ground.
హృదయవాసి అనింది.
Ultimately said,
భగవంతుడు ప్రత్యక్షమయ్యాడు.
She said, Hridayavasi, indweller in my heart, God manifested there.
ద్రౌపది కృష్ణుడిని ప్రశ్నించింది.
Draupadi questioned Krishna.
కృష్ణ,
Oh Krishna,
ఎన్నో పర్యాయములు నేను ప్రార్థించినప్పుడు అందు రాలేదు.
I prayed to you repeatedly. You did not respond.
కానీ
But
నేను కూలిపోయే సమయంలో పిలిచినప్పుడు తక్షణమే వచ్చావు.
I was about to collapse, fall. You manifested there.
కారణం ఏమిటి?
What is the reason?
ఇది భక్తులకు అందరికీ సరైన జవాబు.
Now this answer is appropriate to all devotees now.
ద్రౌపది,
Oh Draupadi,
నన్ను బృందావన విహారి అన్నావు.
you call me as Vrindavana Vihari.
నీలో ఉన్నటువంటి నేను తిరిగి బృందావనం పోయి మరిగి రావాలి. నేను
When you call me Vrindavana Vihari, I must go to Vrindavan and reach here.
లేకపోతే నీ మాటకి ఏమాత్రం సత్యం ఉండదు.
Because your statement will not be true if I act otherwise.
మధురాపుర సంచారి అన్నావు.
You said Madhurapura Sanchari.
దగ్గర ఉన్నటువంటి వాడిని నేను మధురకు పోవాలి, నేను రావాలి.
So I am so near, but I have to reach you via Madhura. Therefore it is a difficult task.
హృదయవాసిని నేను.
I am present in your heart.
ఏ క్షణంలో నన్ను స్మరించినప్పటికీ నేను సిద్ధంగా ఉంటాను.
You may think of me any moment. I am ever ready.
కనుక నీవు లోపలనే స్మరించు,
You think of me within.
మనసుతో స్మరించు,
Think of me
హృదయంతో వరించు.
wholeheartedly.
ఇది నీ యొక్క ప్రార్థన యొక్క సరైన జవాబు.
This is the proper way to pray, and this is the answer.
The story is fictional, no doubt, but Swami narrated it just to stress that we seldom look for God where He really is, right within us. That is a point we shall come back to maybe later, but for the moment there is another issue that must be addressed. The role and the importance of buddhi. People ask, if God is right within us, then how come many a time He hardly responds when we cry out even loudly? The reason for this is simple. The mind is linked to the heart via a hotline called the buddhi. If this line is not working properly, then God would not be able to speak to us when we are straying from the path of Satya and Dharma. It is when such a breakdown happens that the voice of conscience is not heard. Clearly, such breakdown or malfunction of buddhi is not desirable and must be avoided at all costs. And the best way of achieving that is through proper and routine maintenance. In other words, if buddhi is kept in working order, then whenever we call out, God would be able to hear our pleas immediately. So you see, keeping buddhi in good condition helps both ways. Firstly, God can advise us when we go wrong, and likewise, when we cry out to God in times of distress, He too can hear us loud and clear. Thus the question boils down to how to do maintenance on the emergency line to God called buddhi. We shall take that up next time, but meanwhile, let me point out that our job has been made easy because Swami has given the entire maintenance procedure. How lucky we are that God in human form is here now in our midst, helping us so much and in so many different ways too. Offering our deep gratitude to Him, let us wind up with a take-home lesson for the day, which is, God is omnipresent and thus everywhere, in every being, all the time. However, the best place to look for Him is within our own heart, which, as Swami says, is His permanent address.
All that we have to do is call out to Him. But our cry of anguish must be like that of a calf that has lost its mother. God is in our heart all the time and is available 24/7. But to reach Him, we must keep the hotline called buddhi in good condition. That's all that we have for this episode. Thank you for being with us, and do join us again tomorrow. Jai Sai Ram.